Welcome one and all to another episode of Lens of Truth, a series breaking down all things Ocarina of Time. We'll be taking a detailed look at the story, dungeons, towns, mini-games, game mechanics, and way more that Ocarina of Time has to offer, so if you're interested to see more after this video concludes, do consider subscribing to stay tuned. On our last episode, we finally convinced the leader of the Gorons, Darunia, to give us the spiritual stone, but it'll only happen if we clear out Dodongo's cavern for him first. On today's episode, we're going to be doing exactly that, while looking at every little piece of this dungeon through the lens of truth. Walking into Dodongo's cavern, we only have a few options at our disposal. We have a big middle platform here and two side paths to try to progress through. Going to the left side, we have a door that we can't access yet. Next to that though, we have a bomb flower and a breakable wall just like we saw at the entrance to this dungeon. In blowing up this wall, we find a pretty big chest containing none other than our dungeon map. The only other point of interest on this left side of the room is this business scrub. In returning his fire back to him, he offers us the chance to buy a brand new Deku shield should anything happen to ours. Being that we're in a volcano right now, we're gonna want to avoid using our wooden shield altogether because wood is, in fact, quite burnable, and we've already got a metal alternative that works just fine. Moving to the right side of the lobby, we have a bombable wall, which will be our path forward, an elevated tunnel that we can't get to from here, and one of these weird time-telling Sheikah stones behind another one of these bombable walls. Moving through our path forward, it's already become quite apparent how infested this place has become with Dodongos. Upon killing these baby Dodongos, they'll also explode in your face, so you'll have to be pretty careful around them both during and after the fight. Beyond these guys, we find a blue switch which needs weight to be set on top of it in order to stay pressed down. Luckily, there are a couple stone statues around we can pull to set on top of it, opening the next door for us to continue. In the next room, we have a combat encounter with some Lizalfos in a treacherously lava-filled room. These guys aren't too hard to take out though. Much like the wolf we dealt with in the last episode, these two only require some patience and opportune attacks. Once you hit one of them 3 times, they'll run away, causing you to have to come to the other one and hit them 3 times until they run away, and then you do it again for both of them in order to finish them off. It turns into a bit of a long fight for how easy it actually is to beat them, but it's a pretty cool room nonetheless. Moving along, we can break this wall to find another business scrub trying to sell us Deku sticks. I do have a full stack of these right now, so I won't be buying anything from him, but it is nice that he's here because we'll be needing this in the very next room. In this next room, we have some fully grown Dodongos. These guys have quite resilient bodies and they can blow fire at you if you aren't quick enough to dodge. The best way to defeat them is to circle around to their tail while they rear back for a fire attack and give them a couple good hits. These guys will also explode on defeat, so you're gonna want to remain careful around them. Anyways, the reason we needed the Deku sticks for this room is simply just to light up all the torches sitting around here. Once they've all been lit, the next door will open up and we can move on. Through this door, we actually move back into the lobby of the dungeon from that elevated tunnel we saw in the wall earlier. And at the end of this hallway, a switch that opens up the barred off door in the lobby that we saw earlier. Through here, we find a pretty interesting room, but before we get into it, we have a wall to bomb open. In here, we simply have a large chest guarded by 3 statues, and when we try to move the statue in front of the chest out of the way, it turns out it's actually a creature. These creatures are called Armos, and they only exist to surprise the player, but you can destroy them pretty easily by hitting them with bombs. I like to drop bombs right in front of them as I wake them up to make quick work of the challenge, but even just throwing the bombs will do, and upon opening this chest, we find our Dodongo's Cavern compass. Back to this interesting room, we have a huge pillar in the center and 2 lines of bomb flowers going all the way around it. If you're clever, you might realize there's space for 1 bomb in the middle here, and if you need some help, Navi's got your back, basically telling you exactly what to do. In setting these bombs off, we lower this pillar down in sections, creating a staircase to climb up and move on. Moving through another room of Armos and pressing a switch, we've now reached the upper level of Dodongo's Cavern. A little further and we'll be reaching the end of the line, so let's not stop now. Ahead of us, we have a room full of these quick spike traps, so we'll have to move quickly and smoothly between them to avoid taking damage. Once we have, we can reach this platform where we'll have our first bomb throwing challenge of the dungeon. This isn't a necessary skill for the rest of most of the game, but as bombs are our latest accessible item with our brand new Goron bracelet, of course we're going to have some bomb related skills tested in this dungeon. Once we blow up the wall, we make our way into Lizalfos fight number 2. This time though, the platforms are a little scattered around and are all smaller in size as well. It's not much more challenging than the last fight, as you pretty much just need to block and strike appropriately, but it is a neat battle anyways. Once we've defeated these foes and moved on though, we find our true reward for coming into this dungeon in the form of a bomb bag. This bag can hold 20 bombs on its own, giving us a pretty good amount of them to keep on us at all times. Gone are the days of picking bomb flowers from only their growing locations. We've moved on to bigger and brighter methods. With our new bomb bag in tow, we can immediately jump down a level and find out what's behind this wall, and of course, it's just a couple more business scrubs. They sell both Deku seeds for our slingshot, as well as Deku nuts, which I honestly still don't know of a real practical use for. Regardless, we're pretty well stocked, so we'll just make our way back up to where we got the bomb bag and move forward. Now we find ourselves above the giant Dodongo skull in the lobby of Dodongo's cavern, and there's a sign here reading, Giant Dead Dodongo. When it sees red, a new way to go will be open. Somehow we need to make this thing see red, I guess. Whatever that means. There's also a switch here that makes that little elevator from earlier in the lobby extend all the way up to the second floor for ease of access, which is really nice. The only other thing around here is a bridge to the other side, and if we've bombed the wall at the end of the bridge, we're given a chest that holds 5 rupees in it? Okay, we've officially reached the dead end. All we know to do next to progress is to make this giant Dodongo see red, so maybe we should try looking around. Walking back over the bridge, our first clue is given to us. See, there are 2 holes in this bridge that we can easily jump over, but if you look down through them, it's pretty easy to notice that they're both positioned right above the giant Dodongo's eyes. And what better item do we have than bombs to drop straight through these holes? Of course, this is the solution to making this Dodongo see red, and once we're done dropping our bombs, our final path forward is opened up. Within this final path, we have one goal, to get this door open. Unfortunately, the switch that lets us do that requires a weight to hold it down just like the blue switch from earlier in the dungeon, so we're gonna have to figure out a way to get that happening. Moving forward through the next room and finding a fairy we'd be able to bottle up if not for the fact that we already grabbed one in the last episode, we make our way to a higher up tunnel in this new lobby we found with a box just waiting to be pushed onto the button. Doing so, we've opened up the door to the final room of the cavern, and within it, a little chest full of bombs. That would be a pretty anticlimactic end to the dungeon, so naturally we decide to use these bombs on the most conspicuous part of the floor that we can see, and it opens up a drop straight into the heart of the volcano where the King Dodongo resides. In order to rid this mountain cavern of all of the extra Dodongos that have shown up recently and get our hands on the Goron's spiritual stone of fire, we need to take this guy out, and it's not going to be an easy feat. Well, after you know how to get him, it actually is pretty easy. Basically, this guy blows fire at you that you can't avoid, but during his fire breath, we can use, you guessed it, our bombs to throw into his mouth to deal some damage and open up a window for us to hit him with our sword. Every time you do this, you'll have to stay clear of his rolling attack, but with the Hylian shield we picked up a couple episodes ago, that's not gonna be a problem. With this shield, we're completely impervious to his attacks. 3 more cycles later, we found ourselves another full heart container as well as a blue portal taking us out of the dungeon. I guess we should go tell Darunia that oh god, there he is. Okay. Darunia thanks us for allowing the Gorons access back to Dodongo's cavern so they can harvest the delicious rocks from within. He also makes mention of how all this trouble must have been caused by that Ganondorf fellow. Apparently, he told them that if they would give him the spiritual stone of fire, he would open the cavern back up for them, but until then, they would have to starve. That's a pretty messed up way to get what you want, Ganon. You're not really beating the evil guy allegations right now. On our part though, for having risked our lives to help out the Gorons, Darunia deems us his sworn brother, and only then does he summon forth the spiritual stone of fire. With the second spiritual stone finally in our hands, Darunia tells us that we should go visit the Great Fairy at the top of the mountain before we continue our journey to save the realm, and brings in a bunch of extra Gorons to give his new sworn brother a group hug. I can't imagine a group hug from all these Gorons would be a comfortable thing for a small child to endure, so I totally get why Link runs away here. Our visit to the Great Fairy is going to have to wait for the next episode of Lens of Truth though, as we're all out of time for today. Dodongo's Cavern is a fun dungeon, but to be honest, I think it's pretty weak compared to a lot of the other dungeons in this game. I know they had to keep it simple as it's only the second dungeon here, and I did like that there weren't a lot of hand-holding parts similar to the Great Deku Tree dungeon. Overall though, this dungeon didn't have anything special in my opinion. Just a bunch of bombflower picking and throwing, and even the King Dodongo boss was a little too simple in my opinion compared to Queen Goma who we fought in the earlier dungeon. It's fine, it always just left a little to be desired for me compared to how the rest of the game plays out, and especially compared to our next dungeon in line. Regardless of it all, it serves as a strong middle point to the first big objective of this game and its story, so I would never bash it for what it is. If you want to see the next episode of Lens of Truth, do feel free to subscribe to my channel as I put out a new video every single Friday. If you'd like to see the last episode or the playlist of every episode in this series, they'll be on screen now. As for me though, that's my time. My name's Myloe, and I'm out.